Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting for Pasco Council this evening of November 4th, 2019. We have agendas available on the corner desk over here if you'd like to follow along, or a more detailed council packet is available electronically through the city's website. We also televise our meetings through that website as well as Facebook Live and also on Charter Cable. If you get a chance to speak with council, if you come to the podium up here and you share your name with us, we'd be appreciative because it helps our record keeping. And if you have any cell phones, I'd ask you to mute those so that the meeting is not interrupted. And with housekeeping taken care of and noting that Mr. Serrano is absent this evening, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Alvarado.
Present.
Barajas.
Present.
Maloney.
Here.
Martinez.
Present.
Milne.
Present.
Watkins.
Here. And with the 6 of us here, I'll ask for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Third item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we consider these items will be routine, and we'll do them as a single vote. Those items include, unless a member of the public or council wants something considered separately. Those items include the approval of the minutes from the October 21st meeting, under Bills and Communications to approve claims in the total amount of $8,908,811.87. C, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, LTAC recommendations for 2020 lodging tax receipts as recommended by the LTAC. And those are the items. Anything to be removed? Hearing none, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Barajas. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Watkins.
Yes.
Alvarado.
Yes.
Barajas.
Yes.
Maloney.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Milne.
Yes.
Unanimous at 6. That is passed. Thank you for the consent agenda. And we go to item 4, proclamations and acknowledgements. Nothing this evening, so we skip right along to item number 5, visitors other than agenda items. Anybody come on an item that's not further along on the agenda than they wish to speak with council? And I see one hand back here. I see a couple hands. I'm going to start with Mr. Portugal, and I believe you have an introduction to bring somebody up. Bring him on up with you. Good to see you this evening, Mr. Portugal. And if you would just, there should be a button there to turn the red on. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Watkins and City Council members and city staff. I have the pleasure today to introduce to you our new Executive Director for the Downtown Pasco Development Authority. And his name is Gustavo Gutierrez Gomez. He comes to us with 5 years of professional management experiences working with diverse communities in not only in the United States, but also in Mexico. And he is also had some experience in managing programs such as community relations for the city of Woodburn. And also with programs with the Marion County, while developing inclusive communities and workspaces. His passion is diversity, and for the last position with the city of Woodburn, he worked as the ombudsman and got trained in diversity and inclusion to lead the Global Inclusion Advisory Council Committee for the city of Woodburn. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Gustavo Gutierrez Gomez.
Good to see you, sir.
I just want to say hi and thank you for the introduction. That was great. I'm very excited. I actually even bought furniture. I rented a place and I put furniture, and I'm ready to work. Today was basically my first day, and it was really good. So I'm really looking forward to work with this community. Thank you.
And we're looking forward to you helping our downtown out through the DPDA mission, and we appreciate you being here. And also understand too, you have got some connection to an item a little further along on the agenda when we contemplate whether or not to have a relationship with Colima, Mexico. My understanding is you're originally from there as well.
I was born and raised in Colima, Mexico. So yes, so it's dear to my heart. So
another one of those connections. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And I did see 2 hands, and you come on up, ma'am. Yes, you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Michelle Andrews, 1421 North Road 77. And I sent a letter earlier to you, Mayor Watkins, and to Steve Worley, who attends the Columbia Snake River Irrigators Association meetings. The ESA exemption application is on Governor Little's desk in Idaho. He is very seriously considering signing it, and we're asking for your support to call your counterparts in Idaho and encourage them to contact him and sign the letter. This is a significant event. I have briefed Reish, Crapo, and Fulcher. They've asked for all my material, and I sent all of it to Artie James of the Civil Works for Corps of Engineers. They're reviewing it currently at this moment, and so is the new solicitor for the Department of Interior, Giorgiani. So I ask for you to move quickly. You've seen this go on for a long time. It is very serious. We are now pivoting. I saw the 12-page letter that Governor Inslee put out with 55 experts talking about 2015. 2015 is what is the year in the biological opinion that the Fish Passage Center did not move the juvenile fish down the river in a low-flow, high-temperature year. This happened in 2001 prior, and we moved 98% of the juvenile fish. In 2015, the adult return was higher than it had been since 1957 in both natural salmon and cultivated salmon. The juvenile fish were not moved in March. They moved them in May, and they only moved 13%. And the 2-year return of adult fish in 2017 was a 65% loss of steelhead, coho, and salmon. Currently, the spill program has been increasing since 2006, and very steadily, you do not see the returns. You do not see the counts of the juvenile fish. The science is not providing us what's happening to them.
So I'm going to ask if you, since this tends to be more federally related, and I believe we're going to be talking about some federal stuff next week, if you have some material, is that something you could share with staff so that we might have them take a look at it? And
there was the earlier incident this year where the EPA did do the permitting process on the Snake River dams and then moved it to the administrative process for the states to do.
let me be more specific. If you have some material you would think that you would want to share with us, I don't think we're going to be able to go through all the material that you'd want to share this evening.
No,
so if you,
but
if there's something specific, could you please share that with staff so that they might take a look at it to share with us?
I can send all of this.
Wonderful.
Or Columbia Snake River Irrigators Association can tell Mr. Worley, but I would ask you to contact your counterparts in Idaho as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything you do want to share with staff this evening?
There's so much of it, I tend to overpaper people, so
Okay.
I'll work with Mr. Worley.
Okay, I appreciate it. And again, too, I think we're going to be talking about some federal things next week, Mr.
Well,
Zabel?
next week, actually, we're going to be talking state legislative agenda.
Okay, state legislature.
But I can forward this on also to same company, Gordon Thomas Honeywell,
Okay,
assists us with federal liaison work as well.
okay. I think that seems appropriate, so look forward to that. Anybody else this evening? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Julie Webb. You need an address, you said?
Don't need an address. I just wanted your name for our records.
Okay, I live in Kennewick.
That's okay.
Just have my little speech. I'm here tonight to show you the face of the emails that you guys have been getting the last few weeks. I'm a volunteer at the Tri-City Animal Shelter, and we are trying to get all the council members from Pasco, Richland, and Kennewick out to our current shelter for a tour. So far, I have 3 council members from Kennewick and 3 from Richland that have confirmed dates with me, as well as I've had Mr. Milne and Mr. Alvarado out, I believe it's September 16th. These tours have really helped the council members see how terrible the shelter really is. I believe you all need to see it in person and see what you're fighting for, as well as meet the employees that are doing the job that most cannot do or will not do. They are all there for the animals no matter what the condition of the shelter may be. They don't ask for very much, but they should not have to ask for anything. We should be there for them first and foremost. We've been promised a new shelter since 2009. Our current shelter was built in the 1950s and has just been added on throughout the decades. Our new shelter doesn't have to be anything fancy. In fact, we have a few blueprints that we've been looking at that work great for the other ones, so maybe we could just use one of those. At the tour also, I would like to introduce you guys to Cindy Anderson. She's the Vice President of the Pet Overpopulation Prevention, also known as POP in our community. Ms. Anderson and POP are willing to help fund and attach a spay and neuter clinic to the new shelter in hopes of educating the community on the importance of altering our pets, as well as helping get the current shelter animals altered and on their way to their new families. So I do hope that the few that I did speak to, and Kennewick and Richland do take me up on the tour offer. I just need an hour of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask staff quick status on current plans for the new facility. Mr. Rakai?
We're working through the final design and cooperative elements as far as design and budgeting with our the other cities, Kennewick and Richland.
Budgeting, practically speaking, would you guesstimate when we might get to bid? Is that or is that too quick to estimate that?
We're looking at construction next year, but don't have any specific estimates to provide council this evening.
Okay, and appreciate your in having been there a year ago and also 2 years ago. It long overdue. I think everybody agrees that. So we're going to be working on that with our 3-city operation too to make that happen. Anybody else this evening? Hearing none, then we're going to move on. We're going to go to item 6 on the agenda, verbal reports from council members or officers. Any council members? Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I just want to apologize for not attending last week. I had some family events to deal with. But I was able last Friday to attend one of probably the most significant meetings from the Hanford Communities Committee that I sit and represent the city of Pasco on, where we had the Hanford site manager, Brian Vance, and the presidents of the prime contractor companies that provided a presentation on the 30 years of cleanup success at Hanford site. And it was one of the most impressive meetings that I had been to see how far we've come. And I'm an employee at the Hanford site myself. And even being an employee there, you kind of forget because we just, work on daily things that we have to deal with there. But the accomplishments that we've had to clean up the Hanford site and to clean up some of the plumes and the contamination that's been out there has just been phenomenal. And with the new technologies that we've used and are continuing to work with, that they presented was an outstanding effort and an outstanding accomplishment that has been done. And I will tell you that the energy is there to continue to work with legislators and the powers to be to try to continue to have funding come in so that we can continue our cleanup and continue to make sure our river and our communities are safe. So that was a very, very successful and very informational meeting. And also, just one last thing, I was able to attend a couple of community events. One of them where I just came from, McClintock, one of the elementary schools, is working with the Adams family in McDonald's to raise money for the kids to be able to go on field trips at the school. And it was just really cool to see hundreds of people come in and support their community in that way. And I know Ms. Barajas is going to mention some other things. And there was another function that I attended that just feels good to see the community come together. And it was a Boys and Girls Club. I attended a meeting to discuss some of the program models, the training models that the task force for the Boys and Girls Club are working to better the opportunities for our kids in our community. And it's just really, really heartwarming to see how much energy goes in from a lot of key players and leaders from our community. So I want to thank everybody for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. And Ms. Barajas.
Thank you, Mayor. It's going to be a lot. This weekend we had the Community Hope Wall, Pasco's first Community Day of Hope. Thank you, Mayor, for the proclamation. So November 2nd, moving forward, will be the Pasco Day of Hope, where hopefully we all get together and just share inspirational, motivational messages of hope within the community and maybe acts of kindness. The wall, just really real quick, The wall is, again, it was a design by youth in incarceration. Youth that are struggling to feel part of a community. They realize what they've done, but they've been shunned. Everyone has their own opinion about the youth in incarceration. But again, it's a message of hope. These kids are turning their life around. They've been paying. They are paying for their wrongs. And so the message of hope, the flower that was put up on the west wall of Vinnie's Bakery, is a message of hope. And it's a connection to the community that they wish to join soon and make a positive impact. So if you feel you have time and you feel you have a positive message to share with them, I encourage you to volunteer, mentor these kids at the juvenile center. Just one time a week, one time a month, just come and encourage them. Also want to say thank you to everyone that attended. First of all, City of Pasco Facilities Department, Rick, I am so sorry for giving you a hard time, but thank you so much for speeding up the process. Everyone that worked on this, we had so many volunteers. Our volunteers are the backbone of what makes Pasco unique. Our council members, David Milne, Mr. Alvarado, Mr. Maloney, thank you again for showing up there. You do not know what you missed out on. Just thank you to everyone, Team Hope, all the volunteers again. Thank you again, and we'll see you next year at the next Pasco Day of Hope. Thank you, Mayor.
And just to augment your points, Ms. Barajas, too, equal parts. Sometimes I think we all learn about how sometimes city processes work, and the great staff show a great deal of patience and very helpful as well. And Saturday was about hope. There was a lot of good art, and there were a lot of good messages, and I appreciate being invited.
Real quick, before we move on, there's 2 pieces of art that are still up for sale. Thank you, Mayor, for purchasing. Your mother purchased a beautiful piece of art. So if you wish to purchase these pieces of art, funding goes back to buying art supplies for the kids at the juvenile center. Thanks again.
And Mr. Milne.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, so I kind of did something different on Thursday. They had the Halloween trick-or-treating, so I came down. Since I represent the council, I went and got some chocolates and actually handed them out to the staff for the council. And so it was really cool. I got to see part of the building I'd never seen before, meet a lot of different departments. Unfortunately, I missed Rick's department, but other than that, I hit all the other departments. And so if you actually happen to see chocolate on your desk, that was from the council. And I just want to say a big thanks to Richa. She let me go with Brody, the little dinosaur. And so yeah, I handed out candy, and it was a real good time. I had a lot of fun.
I love it when council and staff get to work together. That's great. Also report having just been the opening of Three Rivers Elementary over on Road 84. Wonderful new elementary school. I understand it's about 80 or 90% full already, which also is probably pretty good since we're building a lot of new houses in that new area. Also come to find out that a quarter-ish of the school is primary language of Russian. And so they're learning English as a second language, and in English, Spanish, and a lot of Russian. I thought that was very interesting. So wonderful looking school if you get a chance to drive by. Any others reports? Mr. Alvarado.
I got a quick one. Last week, we had provider recognition awards for all the various healthcare providers that Greater Columbia Communities of Health works with and tries to infuse a better communication for Medicare users. So that was really great to see from all the way from Yakima to, all the way to really the whole Columbia. It's a large area, but just to see all the positive work that a lot of these managed healthcare organizations are really doing to transform the way that they do business or the way that they manage patients. And then I also, with Mayor and some staff on Tuesday, attended the BDI meeting. We were deep diving into some Excel sheets the BDI put together to determine the rates payers pay. So council is responsible for making sure that it's adequate, and so we also appreciate staff and their expertise there to help us along that, especially Richa, who's going to do an even deeper dive into that. So appreciate that.
Yeah, and the follow-on with that will be a recommendation by council members and staff to support or whatever before the end of the year for potential rate changes for garbage service. With that, any others? Hearing none, we'll move on. We do have general fund operating statement. Unless there's comment on that, we'll go on to section 7 on the agenda. Ms. Sigdell?
Yes, I wanted to apologize. The report itself is not attached, and it's an error on my part. It'll be on your packet next week.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. And it's not usually an item we dive into. It's just available for us to review, and we'll look forward to it next week. We go to section 7. We do have an item under here for hearings and council actions on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. The item tonight is about a partial alley vacation. Before I open a public hearing, I'll ask for staff report on this. Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This proposed alley vacation takes place behind the Tri-City Community Health Building at 715 West Court in the C1 zoning district. You can tell from the screen that the alley already dead ends roughly halfway through the block. The community health operators are requesting the vacation so they can facilitate additional parking availability in this location. Consistent with all of our processes and practices, the proposed vacation was referred to utility providers, and they have indicated the need to retain utility easements, which is easily accommodated with the intended use of parking. Staff would recommend council's favorable concurrence with this vacation request.
Any questions of staff before I open a public hearing? Hearing none, I'll open a public hearing. Since this is a land use matter, we make sure they give our public the opportunity. If you have thoughts on this, for it, against it, or otherwise. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Paul Knutson. I'm with Knutson Engineering over in Kennewick, and I'm actually here on behalf of TCCH. I'm not sure if they have someone here tonight as well, but they engaged me this summer to formalize this gravel lot and pave it to kind of go with the rest of the building that's already paved just to the upper right of where that existing campus is. It's been graveled for some time, but they just wanted to, beautify it and actually put nice landscaping that goes with the rest of the parking lot and such that they've got there. So as we started the project, we realized right away that, hey, there's a problem here that you don't own all that. You can't just park there. It's an alley, so you either have to go through the process to vacate it or upgrade it to alleyway standards. And so that's why we petitioned for this vacation. So
Thank you. Appreciate the context. Anybody else this evening? And I'll do a second call, and I'll do a third and final call. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4467, vacating a portion of the alley at the Tri-Cities Community Health Center, and further authorize publication by summary only.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez. Discussion by council on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance number 4467 say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And with that, we are through section 7. We go down to section 8 on the agenda, ordinances and resolutions not related to hearings. And the first item is related to a municipal purposes annexation, specifically for Court Street around the area, fire station number 84. We've talked about a little bit in advance. I guess I'd ask Mr. White any significant changes or thoughts before we continue on.
None, Mr. Mayor, unless council has questions.
Any questions of staff or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4468, an ordinance of the City of Pasco, Washington, annexing certain real property generally located in the area of West Court Street between Murray Street to the south and Court Street to the north, and roads 49 and 50 to the City of Pasco, and assigning zoning to same, and further authorize publication by summary only.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Alvarado. Discussion on by council. And just to remind us too, this is a municipal annexation process, which is little bit different. Mr. White, if we end up approving this, what would then end up being the follow-on from this?
Again, assuming the fire station ends up wishing to locate there, fire stations and other municipal buildings and uses are allowed through the conditional use permit process in all zoning districts. So the next step, assuming this annexation takes place and the fire station ends up there, would be the processing of a conditional use permit for the actual design and location of the station.
So in fact, if we do approve the annexation tonight, that's the approval, then it is annexed.
Yes.
Through that. Sometimes annexation is a little bit more complex. This is a fairly simple version, relatively speaking, for annexation.
This is the Cliff Note version.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none, then I'm going to ask, I'm just years of experience, annexation is never easy, but this one seems relatively straightforward, so I'm going to ask council. All those in favor of ordinance 4468, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. With that, congratulations. That might be your first annexation for a while. Item B, floodplain management ordinance, an update that we talked about a little bit at last council meeting. I guess I'd ask staff any updates since last week, Mr. White?
None.
Questions or a motion by council? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4469 relating to floodplain management, amending Title 24 of the Pasco Municipal Code entitled Floodplain, and further authorize publication by summary only.
Been moved. How about a second? Seconded by Mr. Mill. Discussion on this one. West did okay with our workshop, so we'll ask for your vote. All those in favor of ordinance number 4469 say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Which takes us to section C, which I'm particularly excited to talk about tonight. We have been talking as a council for quite a while about a cooperation and friendship agreement with the city of Colima in Mexico. This one's a little bit of a hybrid and a little bit, we're going to drive to action tonight, but we also have, I'd say it starts off a little bit more of a workshop mode, and ask Mr. Morales to lead us off.
Good evening, Mayor Watkins, members of council. I'm Michael Morales. I'm here today as a development consultant for the administration, and will explain to you where we're at in terms of our progress with the State of Colima Cooperation and Friendship Agreement and the next steps going forward should the council approve the matter. And just our progress to date, I'm going to update this since March of this year because that's when things really started to develop a lot quicker. As you recall, we had the Secretaries of Economic Development and Social Development from the state of Colima were sent by the governor to conduct an exploratory visit to Pasco for a couple of days. And then following that, the governor and the report back was very positive on the possibilities for exchange partnership in Pasco. And as another gesture, the State of Colima sent an executive chef, Jennifer Arana of Casa Trapiche and Cerveceria Colima, to participate in our Cinco de Mayo and initiate the first of our Chef's Table Dinner series at the Pasco Specialty Kitchen. I know a few of you were able to attend those during that week, and it was a really great way to start that event as well. And then in June, we gathered our local steering committee together to begin the formation process for what would support this kind of an effort. 25 people approximately attended, and 21 different organizations from throughout the Tri-Cities. In July, we started our work plans for the steering committee. They broke into work groups by the 5 different category areas identified between the city administration and the state. And then we were invited by the governor, and we're interested in having our own exploratory visit to Colima. So this October, 10 delegates from Pasco, including Mayor Watkins and Councilmember Milne, City Manager Zabel, and myself, attended for 5 days in Colima, and I think you'll probably speak a little more on that later. And then, so now we've been negotiating since that time and getting ready to approve this cooperation agreement. We've been working on this in tandem with my counterpart, Jacqueline, with the state of the governor's office, and putting this together. So they proposed this draft to us, which we've translated, and that is what is before you tonight. Considering, assuming council approval of this venture going forward, we would continue in December 20 with the structural formation of the steering committee. And what that means is that in a sisterhood relationship or these kinds of agreements, your steering committee that's comprised of the community really is who does most of the work. The city's role, with all due respect, is largely ceremonial in these things. There are some direct involvements from departments, but overall, when you talk about arts and culture and education and import-export exchange and the like, that takes on a whole lot of other people than just folks that are working in the city administration. And on the economic development piece of it, our point of contact there from the local end will be Gary Ballou with the Port of Pasco moving forward because of the nexus with the Port of Manzanillo in Colima. And ultimately, what you'd like to have happen is this steering committee to incorporate as its own membership organization. That allows them to be able to raise money for delegation visits and other activities of exchange, and doesn't put the city in a position of not only having to fund it, which is not something that's typically in general government purview, but also is a bit awkward to have the city, and sometimes inappropriate to be having staff or administration or elected officials raising money for community events. So ideally that will be done early in 2020. And then I skipped last one there. So we'll prioritize and develop our exchange projects per the agreement. There's a long list of opportunities here for us, and I think the first priorities are going to be those that are the low-hanging fruit, those that we can do easily and get some more people involved in, and then put out some timelines and benchmarks for the other items in the agenda. Again, the delegation, in addition to the staff and the council members, we had Gary Ballou from the Port of Pasco for economic development and trade, Dr. Susana Reyes from the Pasco School District for education, arts and culture represented with Jose Niguez with Encanto Arts, and Gabriel Portugal with the DPDA, and a little bit of Carl Holder sprinkled into everything, even though he was also with Rotary International primarily, as well as with Councilmember Milne. And then Ana Doris, who's been a citizen advocate for this for quite a while, was there, and also in her capacity with Fiesta Foods.
And I'd note too that every person is here this evening too on that list.
Fantastic. This is just a snapshot of all the organizations that were involved in our initial steering committee meetings. Some will come in fits and starts depending on what the project is, but they are all being informed of the process going along. And so the objective of the Cooperation and Friendship Agreement, which is what is before the Council for approval tonight, is to establish the coordinating framework for Pasco and Colima to facilitate cooperation and exchange. In essence, it's a vessel that can transcend political transitions at their state level as well as at our local level and administrations as well. Colima, in the country of Mexico, they have term limits that are very strict, and it's one term of 6 years. And so this governor has 2 years left in his term, and I believe also that the mayor of Colima has another year or 2 left in his term as well. The agreement is non-binding. I wish Mr. Serrano was here because he gets into all the legal jargon with us, but the agreement is non-binding, does not supersede any right or authority of the city, state, or federal government. Neither party will be obligated to carry out any activity for which a prohibition exists, whether it is by law, custom, or internal condition. Other legal considerations that are in the agreement and covered in there are what happens with intellectual property, data protection, insurance, meaning health insurance and accidental insurance when we are traveling. Employment status, i.e. there is no employment status between anybody in Colima and Pasco and vice versa. Civil liabilities, settlement of any disputes, and then for temporary import of equipment and material, that essentially, for example, if we were going to be on there for a big expo or a trade show or something, and we're taking things down that were of value had to be coming back, we will consider that and make sure those things are covered correctly before we go down. Each party recognizes its responsibility to finance the local agreement activities with local partners and resources and within our budget and regulatory constraints. Again, back to the first overriding principle that this is not changes what the city of Pasco is allowed to do. We have our rules and regulations and laws remain the same, and our standards remain the same. Each party agrees to pay for its own participation expenses for delegation visits unless a special circumstance is negotiated for specific activities. You can think of high school students or other student exchanges or people being sponsored in by one side or the other or hosted in some fashion. There's always a sprinkling of different events throughout a visit that people want to be good hosts and reciprocate. So the areas of cooperation and agreement are economic development and trade, primary, secondary, and post-secondary education, arts and culture, public safety, health and wellness is all one category, and Rotary International project exchanges. One of the things that the outcomes that we want to have is to be able to exchange economic data for trade opportunities, develop or expand import and export opportunities, and development of education exchange programs, arts and culture exchange projects, including instrumental and vocal performing artists exchange, music composition exchange, commission and donation of art pieces, art exhibitions, culinary exchange of chefs and products. Knowledge and experience exchange and community health and wellness initiatives, intergovernmental exchange of program technical assistance and equipment. The biennial work programs that each of us propose to develop on our local level will be developed and proposed, and they'll be added as addenda to this agreement. So once the steering committee formulates what we really think we can accomplish in the next 2 years, then that will come back before the council to acknowledge this will be an addenda to the agreement. At some point in time, it'll probably be next year where you'd want to appoint a liaison to be a member of this so they can be apprised of things as they go forward. So they'll include our objectives, our implementation schedules, identify responsible partner agencies, estimate allocation of human material and financial resources, publication of results, and other information the parties deem beneficial to the projects. With that, I will leave it to you with any questions. I guess I would provide this quick overview that when the delegation visit, we probably could have taken a lot longer with a lot of great pictures and great stories in this presentation, but I wanted to keep us a little bit focused on the technical piece of it and what's at hand. But certainly, you know, with the council members in your discussion and with the community members, I'm sure you'll hear plenty of good things.
I appreciate too laying out the technical course and the specifics of the mechanics of such an agreement, and I agree too that if we have an opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've learned also during that trip as well. So I don't know where to go from here. I guess start off with questions, Mr. Morales, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really easy question here. But I thought when we started this process that a city could only have a partnership with another city, not with the state. I thought there was some mechanics to work with that, but I was surprised and gratified to see that this was with the state itself. Could you speak at all to how that evolution happened?
Yeah, so the sister city would be between cities, and so this would not fall under the umbrella of Sister Cities International because they don't acknowledge city-to-state relationships. There are state-to-state relationships, and in this case, it's a bit of a hybrid, which we tend to have a tendency to do that here in Pasco. And part of that has to do with where the relationships were established and our understanding of it initially, and between as far as the state making this overall gesture for covering multiple cities in Colima. Another reason for that is that Colima is among the smallest of the Mexican states geographically, but also population-wise. And so a lot of times you're dealing with a city itself that would be 800,000 to 1 million population. The whole state has 800,000 people. And so they're able to cover multiple areas and still have that same kind of benefit. Our rotary exchanges have been also outside of Colima, Colima City as well. And the other specific reason that we went with the state, proposed state relationship is because of the Port of Manzanillo. That is, way outside of the city, and to be able to keep that relationship going, you wanted to go with the larger institution because that's where our economic development trade opportunity is. And I would look back at an experience I had. I know I mentioned a lot of times the Yakima Morelia experience, and in that particular case, that was always a bridge too far to cross, so to speak, was getting things with the Port of Las Cardenas, which was just coming online at that time. But that just was too far away, and just the disconnection of a city of 1 million people with another port a couple hours away just could really never get materialized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, Mr. Morales, yes, Ruben.
The guy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm excited to see all the list of opportunities that this opens up. I'm just curious, perhaps from your perspective or from conversations that were taking place during these visits and these conversations, what are the probably most likely or most beneficial type of activities that we can endeavor in that perhaps you have seen? I know that you were also involved in the Morelia and Yakima partnership, and so just curious kind of what I'm totally for this, but just kind of what do you foresee would be the most beneficial activity?
I'm glad you actually referenced again back to the other relationship in Yakima Morelia, because that was very, very much very touristy. It was very much about promotion on their end with a lot of things and promoting tourism in their area. We had a little bit of things with public safety, and it took a while to develop the other projects. In this particular relationship, they are very, very serious and sincere about wanting to make some progress early and get this successful. So early on, a couple of the projects will be, there's a STEM exchange program that they would like to, Pasco City would be interested in partnering with. as well. And then from the civil protection side of things, they are in the process of getting us specifications on all the different items that we typically end up surplusing in fairly short order here, so that we can provide possibly those kind of contributions, whether they're for their police or fire services. One other area that we've offered some technical assistance in is to review. They're just in the process of developing a solid waste program in the city of Colima and then in other areas, meaning just basic refuse service. And so we thought that was a little further along than it is, but they are in the middle of doing a complete study of it. And so when that is available, we've offered some technical assistance for kind of review and consult on that study with things that maybe having done this before that we could provide insight to them on. And then secondly, start to begin the process of identifying, what kinds of materials or equipment could we connect with them on. On the arts and culture side of things, the possibilities there are endless. It was very impressive to have their state State Secretary of Culture meeting with us. We met with cabinet level officials and their highest level staff. But everything that I mentioned in there are all things that could happen in the next 6 to 12 months, from exchange of performances to commissioning art pieces to art exhibits and donations of that sort, and especially on the culinary end. And that ties into, on the culinary end, from economic exchange. When we looked at the whole list of their products and that they were looking at creating more export opportunities for, and where we would want to look at also driving into some new markets, I think we only had like 2 products in common: watermelon and blueberries or something like that. I mean, there's just so many things that
everything else was not on each other's lists.
Yeah. So more room for our stuff to go down there and vice versa. And so arts and culture, the Rotary National Exchange folks, I think Councilmember Milne and Carl can talk a little more about that. They are a really hardworking group, and I think there's always going to be opportunities to make an impact there early on. And it's quite a mouthful, but I think initially what you'll see progress on once this group gets going is going to be primarily in the arts and culture arena. And that's because the Downtown Pasco Development Authority is looking at and would like with the city to extend an invitation, should this pass, for the governor of Colima to come to our Cinco de Mayo Festival. And of course, that unlocks a lot of opportunities from the culinary and the performing arts end to bring in some entertainment and have some great exchange, because Cinco de Mayo is more than just a one-day festival. There's the Lienzo de Charro, there is the art exhibit, there is Noche Cultural, and the culinary items going on. So a lot of that will be over the course of the winter that you'll see some of those things coming forward. And Jose Inigas as well really got into more technical discussions with them on what they could do in terms of exchange on the musical end.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Morales. A great presentation, and I think also just it's great to see a lot of times these plans, they look like these are some possibilities, and so it's really encouraging to see that these possibilities are actually very tangible, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
And just something I want to maybe think about as a theme, because I know coming back from that delegation, I and other members of the delegation, we saw the deeper connection than we even realized with Colima. And I think it's fair to say that Ms. Anna brought us together, but we ended up going a step further in finding those connections. And I think you've hit on a couple of those that we were surprised on we were there. And I would also eventually invite anybody who is on the delegation who has thoughts on that deeper connection that we were surprised about to share their stories if we get a chance. I just want to, we'll end up going from discussion of this to actually want to do a motion and all that, but I want to make sure that we thoroughly vet it as a council. Your other thoughts, Mr. Morales?
In discussing, answering Ruben Alvaro's question, I remember there's something that in Councilor Maloney's question that is probably a good example of the state-city relationship. So oftentimes in Mexico, especially when there are different parties, you work with the state and the city has its own thing, and even if it's a capital. And that's been my experience in other places as well. And so as this is going with the state going forward, I think there were a couple of festivals that I had mentioned back when I presented last year that were coming up later this year as opportunities for us to get engaged. Those are city festivals. And so that is another reason why it's important to have this committee structure take place, because if there's an opportunity to impart arts and culture, let the artists work it out and let's get the politics out of it. And that's really what that's about. So, Sabora Fest in this winter and the Volcano Festival later on, those are things that I primarily see happening, that artists start to talk to each other and see some possibilities and make something happen. May not be part of the Colima Pasco cooperation agreement, but it's certainly going to be a thread that on our end we want to keep building.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The way I see this is that this is a perfect opportunity, and I think I can speak for the rest of the council, that is one of the reasons why we come and want to serve our community in this way, is to bring enhancement and quality of life to our people. There are many, many people here from Colima. This is going to bring just one extra bit of enlightenment for them to come and be able to share and have our community that's not from Colima grow in this, learning the culture a little bit more maybe, and just being a part of this relationship that we're building. I think with the visit that was taken by many of us, not us, but many of those who went to Colima, didn't hear any type of situations where they felt unsafe or anything that was going on. I think this will build the relationship to a more peaceful atmosphere. And I'm quite frankly, my father was just jealous that we couldn't get something going with the state of Nuevo León in the city. So I don't know what this is going to spark up, but I'm grateful for this opportunity. Just like all the other events that are programs that we try to encourage in this city to help the quality of life of our citizens. And I just see nothing but good coming out of this, and productive things, and helping our people here grow into making this place a better place for everybody. So I'm definitely going to be in favor of this, and I appreciate all the work and effort that has gone into this from everybody who's a part of it. And I think that if we can just grasp, the cultures we have, not just this one, but all the cultures we have, we're going to be a better place. Thank you.
Mr. Milne.
Yeah, thanks. To basically tag on to what Saul's saying. I mean, I know when I went down there, I was maybe a little more apprehensive, seeing what it was like. I mean, I've never really been. I've been on a cruise and you go to the port, but actually getting to know a city and everything. And I can say actually when I left, I actually felt like I was leaving part of my family behind. It was kind of a really unique experience that I never experienced before. And so I'm definitely for this as well. And again, I felt so strongly about it that I am planning on sending my now 15-year-old daughter down there by herself as far as an exchange, just because I do feel it was that safe. We did do, Dave Zabel and myself, we did walk around 1:30 at night downtown. We didn't stay just in the plaza. We actually went about a mile and back, and just to make sure that it was a safe place. So I thought we both kind of put ourselves on the line just to make sure that what we were getting into was a good fit for the city. And yeah, and then also an update with Rotary. I did mention their plan to the multi-club. We met, we talked about it. We're still waiting on details from Colima, a little bit more details we need, but it seemed real positive. And again, I put in a good word about what a great group of guys and gals the Rotary down there in Colima is, and we hope that we get this worked out, and hopefully it'll be a project coming up in 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Milne. Ms. Barajas?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for bringing that up, David. Regarding the safety and security. If I may, Mayor, I'd like to hear a little bit from Susanna or whoever is representing the school district in regards to the STEM program and how that's going to develop or what the plan is.
I think it's a perfect segue because I was make sure it's a council's meeting, but I wanted to hear. So, well, there's a special request for Dr. Reyes, and I would just ask generally if there's anybody who wants to add to the color and the meat of this conversation. Come on up and sit up front row, and we'd like to hear your experiences as well.
Thank you, and I apologize for putting you on the spot like that, but I'm assuming you're the expert in the matter.
Dr. Reyes, good to see you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here this evening. We had opportunities to visit a school whose focus is in STEM, and the school is more of a secondary school, but they have an interest in engaging with not only the school district but also CBC and WSU in that area. And because it was our initial visit, it's really under development. So I'd be happy to bring back a future report.
Perfect. Thank you.
And personal thoughts. What anything surprise you on the trip?
Well, I think Colima is a beautiful city. I am from Mexico City. That's where I was born. And so I feel like I'm from everywhere in Mexico. So it was perfect for me. My parents are from Michoacan and Jalisco, and I felt very safe, and people were friendly, and it was really a wonderfully unique experience. Really grateful to have participated. Thank you.
Anything you were interested in specifics, Ms. Barajas, other than Dr. Reyes?
Other than the educational portion of it, I know when the proposal was first initially brought forward, my concerns were more in regards to safety and security, and I think we've gotten more feedback on that, especially from the group that was there. I appreciate the follow up on that, but my curiosity is, again, the STEM program, how that's going to develop. Mr. Milne will be sending his daughter, so it's just really a follow-up, how many students are participating in that portion. Obviously, there's a lot of other fields that are going to be involved, but maybe because I'm a mother and my kids are in school, and I was very interested in the STEM topic of it.
Okay, covered there. I'd say leave this open if there's anybody from the delegation that have any thoughts. Mr. Portugal.
Thank you.
And you two actually are from not too far away.
Right, from the state of Nayarit. And a little bit about STEM for Council Member Barajas. They have a STEM school where the whole school is like a boarding school. Students come from all over the state and they live there, they eat there. And we were told 4 meals a day. And so I thought, wow, that's pretty good. We visited the labs for robotics and a couple of other labs, and also one about music, which is one of the areas that I really love. And so the STEM school was really 5 million pesos, I think they allocate for that. So it's government financed. So we saw that, and then we wanted to see how we can compare what is going on with our STEM here and over there, and see how we can come to an understanding of the areas that we can share in the area of education. As a retired teacher, principal, I kind of really am excited about it, that exchange. But I wanted to share with you my observations because I was part of the arts and culture. And we had the chance to visit la Secretaria de Arte y Desarrollo Cultural. And we were very impressed about the things that they're proposing. And as you know, some of you council members have attended some of the events that DPD has put together as far as Noche Cultural, Cultural Night, where we bring the Native American, Scottish, Filipino, and Mexican cultures together and share, and not only the entertainment, but the significance of the dance and the songs, so that people really make those connections. And so when we're talking over there to the officials, they wanted to see how we can exchange some of that. And then they say, well, can you send us some groups, that are representative of the area, that, like the Native Americans, Filipinos, or something like that. And then that's where we are. And they, in return, will also look at the possibilities of sending a group from Colima and from the Indigenous Festival that they have. It's a really big one, 3 days in August, and hopefully we'll have, Jose will probably speak a little bit about the music piece. But what I wanted to share to you is that this is an opportunity for us here in Pasco. You know how people say about the word respect? They say, oh, I respect you. Well, that is a word. It's only a word. It becomes a really act of respect when you know about each other. And that's what I try to do with the Noche Cultural, so that we really learn what the Native Americans, when they sing, they chant, their Filipinos do their dances, that they explain to us what that means. And to me, that is the step that we need to take to become really respectful. And when we use the word, oh yeah, I respect you, then it's not just a word, that we are beyond, we understand each other when we say the word. And that, to me, has a lot of more meaning than just the word, respect. So this is an opportunity for Pasco and Colima and the state of Colima to begin this respect, learning about each other, so that we in the future say, we respect each other, we have the background knowledge for that. So I am really happy that you're considering to to go along with this concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Good evening. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. My name is Jose Iniguez. Thank you for having me here. On this trip, I have to tell you, as a performer myself, it was very special to have the opportunity to exchange with them. Not only as having family in Colima myself, I was able to visit my nieces and show them that, I have a potential of collaborating with their state conductor of their symphony. That right there is an unbelievable story, that for them to see their uncle family go to the States as farm workers, and then to come back and now is collaborating with the state symphony is a story. And I think that shows not only the hope that we talk about, but it shows the opportunity that you're providing as well with this collaboration. That is the goal. I'll be bringing compositions, American compositions, musicals arranged, composed from American composers to the State Symphony and of Colima, and performing and arranging everything that they need for their instrumentations, and as well as hopes in bringing some of their performers over here, especially their conductor. That'd be fantastic. But anyhow, that was really my experience on seeing the potential, and as well as just looking at such a vibrancy in their arts and culture. I mean, they have a huge jumpstart from just decades and hundreds of years of culture and history and arts that we can learn from. And that was one of the beautiful things of touring their museums, and seeing so much history that I didn't even know myself that was from that area. From that standpoint, I want to give you my personal opinion, and I hope this goes through. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your perspective. Mr. Holder.
Carl Holder. It was a terrific trip, and got to meet some of the people that we had done business with at Rotary International over the years. We had a sustainable project that put computers into adult education centers, and has taken the adult education from very low to very high in the state of Mexico due to the implementation, and to see the people that brought that project to fruition and continue to support it was really heartwarming. There were 20 different things of connections that I saw, but one of the most fun that I had was to be with you all when we went to see the Charros. And it was just a drive-by that we pulled into an open gate to see this stadium where they have the Charros, and to go back in the back and see the president of the association shoeing a horse. And to see the picture on the wall, many of the people that are actually living here in the Pasco, Franklin County area, and communicating with a bunch of people that had direct connections with these people in Colima was really fascinating for me. So thank you so much for this.
And just to augment Mr. Holder's comment too, that one was my favorite memory too. A variety of people, we know that we have 100+ Charro horses in the Cinco de Mayo celebration, and some are probably aware that we've been trying to work with Jorge de la Mora to see might have a practice space, and to be in that Charro space, which apparently they have many hundreds of horses in Colima, but the founding picture in the 1980s of this space had a de la Mora that my understanding is that is a cousin or a brother or a relation to Jorge here, and that just hit it home for me, and was one of those many, as Mr. Holder pointed out, dozens of surprising connections between our two communities.
And those are the connections that when I first got here in 1998 and I started meeting people and Los de la Mora, and I knew De la Moras were there. So it was, for me, I thought, well, there's a huge sisterhood already. There a huge DNA already from Colima. So it was only natural for that to happen. So now making this official in this capacity, it would benefit greatly both communities. And I'm very thankful for this trip. And, it was super heartwarming to see two of my hearts coming together and getting to know each other and understanding of each other more. So thank you for coming and for your support. Thank you.
Any other thoughts to be expressed? Mr. Diaz.
Good evening, everyone. Now, unfortunately, I did not get to travel to Colima, but I did want to come tonight and express my support for this partnership, for this friendship. As many of you know, I'm president of Drew Boy Creative, which is an art gallery here in the Tri-Cities, and I'll do everything I can to work with the Arts and Cultural Committee to grow upon the activities here, both in Pasco, but also in Colima. So I just want to voice my support for this project. I was able to participate in some of the earlier activities as part of the Tri-Cities Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And as I told the delegation then, and I told many of the individuals behind me, that there's few projects that I've been a part of in the Tri-Cities that I'm this excited about, both from the arts and cultural perspective, but also for the economic development opportunities. So thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff.
And it's interesting because I just want to come and say that for me, my grandparents are farmers, and my mom only did like 7th grade. My dad did 3rd grade education, but my mom raised us by herself. And being from Colima, immigrating to the United States, and I went to the college. I went to school and the college in Mexico, in Colima, because my mother always said, go to school. But the interesting piece is coming up here as an immigrant 16 years ago, going through the college system here, and just participating in this. I can tell you there's many differences through the school system and through the arts and education, because I have tested them and I have applied them, and the interesting piece is, the United States has so many cultures and so many richness in specifically like architectural design, fashion, and food, but you have this melting pot. So you have all combinations of things. So Colima has these roots and this rich history of hundreds of years, so combining them, I'm excited for the opportunity to be here and working here with this community, but to see, where it would lead us. And knowing that a lot of the community they already have roots in Colima, it just makes it more appealing to me, not only to be here working, but to move my family here too and work with, closer to the city. So thank you. I just want to give you that opinion because I think this is exciting for everyone, but for someone who has lived in both places and experienced the culture and the school system, I think it will be phenomenal. There's a lot of opportunity. You already know, but you have to see it. And thank you for the people who went up there. I appreciate what you saw and share that. Thank you.
So we, in fact, do have a cooperation and friendship agreement in front of us. Is this something we'd like to consider adopting this evening, Council, is the question. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 3917 regarding a cooperation and friendship agreement between the state of Colima of the United Mexican States and the city of Pasco, Washington, and authorize the mayor and the city manager to execute the agreement.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Milne. Other discussion? Mr. Morales, you need anything? Okay. Any other discussion? Well, I'm going to ask for a vote then. All those in favor of resolution 3918 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And I want congratulations. With that, we have a chapters to write, and as Mr. Morales pointed out, that endures past this current council and for the future of Pasco. And as an outgoing council member, I'm excited and happy and gratified that council, staff, and people of Pasco are supporting this, and look forward to that arrangement. And if you get a chance to go to Colima, which I did, and if you get a chance to slide down Piedra Lisa, that's an incredible piece of, there's a little story there you can Google, and hope I'm going to go back one day myself, I know. Thank you, everybody. And big one tonight, we're Pasco Council, we got other agenda items. We're going to move on down through the list, and we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, and that is related to item D, orthophoto mapping intergovernmental agreement. Any updates since last week, Mr. Mackay?
No updates since last week, Mr. Mayor.
Questions or a motion by council, Mr. Maloney?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on to much more exciting business than our last part. I move to approve resolution number 3918, authorizing the city manager to execute the intergovernmental agreement with Benton County for the aerial photography and orthophoto mapping of the city within the city of Pasco.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on this? Hearing none, who wants to do the ortho mapping, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. We go on now to the next item. Again, an item talked about previous week's discussion related to the Tri-Cities Consolidated Plan and Elements. Any updates, Mr. White?
None, Mr. Mayor.
With that, questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 3919, adopting the 2020 to 2024 Tri-Cities Home Consortium Consolidated Plan and analysis of impediments to fair housing.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez. Discussion on this item. Hearing none, all those in favor of 3919 say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. No unfinished business this evening, so we go to 10 new business. And as if, Pasco has not done a intergovernmental agreement before the Colima one that in my memory. So let's talk about doing two tonight. Agreement in principle with the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. Item we talked about before. Updates or discussion, Mr. Zabel?
No real updates. I think we had a pretty robust conversation last week. I would note that we're working with tribal officials to coordinate a signing ceremony. I think November 20th is the tentative date. And at that same evening, we would have a reception that would involve a number of the agencies that they were hopeful we could coordinate for them to meet. So Franklin County and the elected officials from the county, as well as some of the other cities around the Tri-Cities and other governmental agencies.
So presuming we do this, this one's a little bit more pomp and circumstance. We'd have signing ceremony and the 20th and make it a community and Colville event.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's first start. How about a motion? Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the agreement in principle with the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation.
It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Barajas. Discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. So we'll send word and aim for the 20th to have a signing ceremony and a community event. And we go down to item 10B, an item we talked about a bit last week related to a survey. And I think, if I remember right, we were in agreement going with the specifics recommendations by staff as related to which add-ons, where I think we got into even, I believe, agreed to 2 of the 3 questions staff posed about, let's see, I believe the staff posed about public art and housing. And then, no, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, I have another here. Public art and housing, and then from the field, I think there were some council members that worked with staff on questions about marijuana dispensaries or ATVs or downtown questions. Is that a fair summary, Mr. Zabel?
Yes, I would add, I think the downtown question came out at the meeting.
Okay.
I think that was Councilmember Milne, and then truth in advertising, the ATV question's mine.
It was yours, okay. So I'm going to make the suggestion, unless council objects, that if we agree with the public art and the housing question, if I can get some nods on that point, and then that we would then decide which of the third question from the remaining three. Any objection to that as a principle? Okay, we're going to kind of express some interest here, if that's okay. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read through the questions. I guess I'd ask specifically who's interested in which of the three questions. And I'm going to start down on this. And Mr. Rubin, do you have an opinion on which one of the three questions to add as the third question?
Pick one.
Pick one of the remaining three. Marijuana, ATV, or downtown?
I'd say downtown.
Downtown, okay. Mr. Maloney, do you have a preference?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think we should move forward with the retail marijuana dispensaries.
Okay, and the question, okay. And I'll just, since we're going in a line, I'm going to say that I'd be interested in the downtown question myself. Mr. Martinez, do you have a preference?
The downtown.
Okay, Mr. Martinez, Ms. Barajas.
Downtown.
Okay, and Mr. Miller. Okay, well, and hopefully we didn't bias there, but how about I'm going to make the suggestion that Mr. Maloney is really good at making motions. Would you like to make a motion and include which specific three questions we would ask?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd love to. I move to authorize staff to contract for the National Citizen Survey, including standard mail survey, Spanish and district-based geographic options, and to include the three policy questions regarding public art, housing, and downtown Pasco, as discussed.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Martinez. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And I'll say it again, thank you for being very easy. I dreaded this and thought this was going to be more complicated, and I appreciate consensus on this. So, Mr. Zabel, we ready to do a survey?
Absolutely.
And when we get this, the survey is going to go end up going out, and the data results, if I remember right, take a month or two before we'll end up getting them.
Yeah, we should receive the data shortly at the beginning of the year, roughly about the time we do the listening sessions, and well in advance of council's 2020 retreat.
And so I just note too that you're setting yourself up for a 2-year cycle, and congratulations. And thank you. Okay, with that we go to 11, miscellaneous discussion. Mr. Zabel, anything to cover?
Oh, just a couple items. I mentioned about Spooky City Hall last Halloween on the 31st of October. And we had 200 kids show up along with some parents and one council member. And yeah, that was a great event, and I think very well received, I think, from the public. So Washington State High School Cross Country Championships are this weekend. Councilmember Martinez mentioned that many times. And at Sun Willows, that's kind of an annual tradition. And we're expecting about 5,000 people, with participants and families counted together, about 5,000 people showing up to that. So big event for the city. We see a lot of activity out in that part of town. And that's all I had this evening.
How about council, Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll say that my wife did take my youngest daughter to the festivities here, and she really had a great time. My daughter thought it was awesome, and my wife's hoping to bring her back next year, assuming that we do that again. And then the last thing I'd say is vote, please. Anyone paying attention that has not turned in their ballot yet, this is important. Get out to vote, and best of luck to all the candidates.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Any other discussion? Hearing none, is there a need for an executive session?
Not this evening.
With that, we go to 13. We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.